This is Joe,
Michelle,
Melissa,
and Shannon.
with More Than a Sniff, where we talk about everything dog.
from training to nutrition.
From behavior modification to grooming. From vet visits to dog parks.
From getting to know us to having guests. Today we're going to talk about still staying in our third pillar of being consistent and the consistency of training and how it progresses. And so today we're going to take the COME command and we're going to break that down into staying consistent and what that looks like, because I believe even over most behavioral problems, COME can be one of the most difficult commands to teach because it's so abstract. Two, it goes against the grain of dogs, and people are not consistent with it and what the expectation is when their dog is off leash. And so let's start with the very beginnings of, I have a dog, so it's a puppy or it's a rescue. I've just brought a dog into my home. And let's start there with, now what? We need to work on COME. We've kind of done everything else. We need to get this COME. They're active people. They want a dog that's going to stick with them, not have to worry about constantly having a leash on. And where do we start? Where does it start, Michelle?
Well, for me, there are different breeds are better than others on and off leash. So, first of all, knowing what you have, I think is really important. Even if you adopt a dog, you can find out somewhat what they are.
Sure.
So I think that's really important to start there. And then I think it starts from the second you get that dog home and with the leash being on and being consistent with having just the leash on in the house, and creating that connection. Because I, like with my dogs, I really feel like, yes, they all have a recall, but really them just actually wanting to be with me is more important to me when I'm out off leash.
Yep.
Is that they're not taking off. So having that connection already there, I think that is step one, and that should start the second you get a dog home, no matter what. For a lot of reasons. We've talked about this in past podcasts of why you should have your dog on a leash. But and then I think you should move on to the long line, doing that kind of stuff, seeing what the dog is going to do out and about, take him to the park, the field and stuff, see what that connection is going to be.
Yeah.
A lot of clients, we do teach like an actual formal recall. A lot of times we'll use targeting and stuff like that. Most of the time, I really feel like that's more about just a training process. I don't know how else to describe that. Than it is really the act of it happening.
Yeah. It's the concept of
yes, right, exactly. And I try to use it more of a like switching people's mindsets, because I think a lot of times when people think of COME, they really like COME can mean anything, and we use it just in a general like, come on, let's go, let's and that just means come with me. That doesn't mean come like. So I always when I do that, I always teach that as a here, and so with that it's really it's fun for the dog, and it's really more for me to get the mindset to people is when you want your dog to come, use the word here, and that dog better get here. That doesn't mean come with me. That doesn't mean stick next to me. That means you will be here.
Right.
But really, I think that's more of a process than it is actually teaching the dog a recall. Like it really is more for the owners, for me. The rest of it really is like out doing long line work.
So in the very beginnings, it's all about the leash.
For me, it's all about connection. I think recall is 100% all about connection. I don't even know if you really even need to teach a dog a recall, to be honest with you. You need that. You need that actual, like, get your butt over here right this very second. You better be touching me and I'm touching you type of thing. But just the connection is, I think, so much more important than actually teaching that word. Murphy, as is an example with my 3 dogs, they're all 3 so different in their connection. And Murphy is definitely the most connected. We don't ever have to use a recall on him because he's never more than 5 feet away from us, ever.
Right.
Ever. Where the littles, they have to have a recall because Rambo's space is a lot wider than the other, which is weird. Actually, Cavalier should be the worst, but Rambo's space is a lot bigger. His bubble is. So he has to have a recall when we're out and about, especially because he's so small. So things are very dangerous out in the world for him.
Right. Shannon?
So connection is bigger for me than the actual word.
Okay, I like it.
Is this the same question?
Yep.
Where does it start?
Really,
for me, the recall really is the extension that to your dog's mind that you do have a leash on them.
Yep. Yep.
And so if your goal is to not have to use the leash, you have to consistently use the leash until it's in their mind that you always have that like control, for lack of a better word, over whether the dog is with you or not.
Yep.
And I think that is why it's such a struggle, because people are like, well, I don't want to use the leash.
Yeah.
The dog should just be with me.
Yeah.
And that's why it's so abstract, I think, to them, because they're like, well, we should practice not having a leash to get the dog to be with us, and it's actually the opposite.
Yeah. Yeah.
You have to use the leash for a really long time and be really consistent with it to create that image in the mind of the dog that you always do have the leash or the control over them. And that I think that's the number one reason why it's so hard for people, because they don't want to use the leash and they don't understand then why their dog won't come when they call it.
Yep. Melissa?
My very first thought is, don't confuse come with come inside. Almost like 75% of the time when people are like, oh, my dog won't come, it's that picture of coming from outside inside. And sometimes that's the only time people practice recall. And I guess in a sense it could be, but it's a different picture. So don't have that be your recall practice. That puts a different image in your dog's head. You are taking the dog away from the freedom of the yard inside. I don't know. Some dogs think so if you do have your dog in the yard, have a long line on them. Reel them in. I tell clients all the time, have that long line, have it dragging. But you have that control with the leash. But also use recall as a fun thing. I'm doing that less I have a client right now who the dog, they're trying to build a connection. The dog is just turned a year old, but they got her 4 weeks ago. And they have the leash in the house, and she called me in tears, and she was like, I'm so frustrated with this leash. The dog squirms anytime she's near me. I'm so sick of this leash. I'm like, well, yeah. You have this image with the leash, and so think of it as a fun thing, and be grateful that your dog's coming to you. Get excited that the dog's coming to you, and have that be your release. Your dog will sense that you release when they come to you. Then you become the release. You become the good release, the fun. You are the, not to say you can't punish them or get mad at them and recall, like, get your butt over here, you're in trouble, but also have it be a fun thing. You should be the source of everything to your dog. The structure, the happiness, the food, So have the dog on leash, come bring him to the food. But use that leash as we're in this together. To start building that connection. And I feed them, say their name, make eye contact with the hand feeding, but especially hand feeding be a big one.
See, I think that's why it's so hard to be consistent with recall. I mean, because the leash is not always on, right? I mean, that's really hard for people. We've talked about this. Yep. It's so hard, but we don't always have food in your hand either. So that's where that comes. I mean, that's why we're talking about this, right? Is I think recall is so hard to be consistent with.
Yep.
Because you use it all the time.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of the problem is you overuse it.
Right.
And so then the dog is just like, I don't really have to come this time.
Yeah.
You didn't get mad last time, or you did get mad last time, so I'm not coming this time, or, last time you just let me go, or whatever.
Yep.
I think recall is so hard because we overuse it.
Yep.
Because it is, you do, like Melissa's 100% right, that like that come inside, we use that as a recall.
Yeah.
Instead of it being like, come on, let's go means follow me, where like here means you better get here right now.
Yep. Yep.
Which is so hard for people to change that word too.
Right. Yep.
Like it's just so much in our vocabulary for come is to come.
Yeah.
Come here.
Yeah.
And so I think that's why it's so hard to be consistent is you're always calling your dog.
Yep.
I mean, there's a lot of
extent,
dogs that don't even listen to their name anymore because you
Yeah.
use it so much that they're
Right.
like, I don't have to listen to you anymore.
Yep. Yep.
Um,
Yeah, it's the consistency with that picture is so abstract. And yes, we use come in so many different ways. So what does that look like to the dog? Many things. We use their name in so many ways. So what does that look like to the dog? And what are the expectations with that? And then, stick with me. Kind of.
Right. Yeah.
You know,
I mean, that's the
so
thing. When we're
it's-
out hiking, I do let Rambo run wherever the heck
Sure.
he wants, as long as I can still hear him. Like,
Yeah.
you know what I
Yep.
mean? So
Yep.
it's not this.
Yeah, it's very, very abstract. So I like to start with the leash on to create the picture for the owners of connection, not the recall. We have the leash on to get the dog connected and to prevent. Then what? Then where do we go? So I have a client, and Melissa had her this weekend, the dog, and there's 3 scenarios that you got this weekend, and one is they've done such a great job at keeping this dog on leash that when she breaks from the leash, she runs, she goes, she's free, so they've done a great job at staying consistent, the leash on when it's appropriate, and making sure that she's not put in situations that she can run away. But now what? Now where are we at with it? Because she wants to go away when the leash is not on. She's got good connection when there's in a controlled situation. Because I would assume she came up to you, Rosie, when she connects with you. She'll come up with you, no problems in the yard, as long as she understands what the rules are. Then we have the golden that doesn't want to come inside, period, does not want to connect with people at all. And she's been that way from the get-go. And the yard is, I don't want to come to you. I don't care that you're there. I don't care that you've stepped out into my environment. I'm going to do my own thing, and then I'll come into you when I feel like I'm ready, and it's in a very long time. And then we have the other one that just, life is good, and he'll connect in you and follow the rules and everything. So there's 3 different situations with the connection of, we've got an extreme, we've got 2 extremes, and then we've got this kind of in between of, now what? And I find that those, all 3 of those are examples of consistency. I'm going to consistently chase you around the yard to get you. So it's a game. It's a great game to play. I'm going to consistently keep you on the leash all the time and prevent anything. And then I'm going to consistently praise when you're around me and keep, and life is good. And 3 different households, 3 different consistent things with this weird connection that happens with recall. And so Michelle, I think you're right, is it's really difficult to stay consistent with it because at some point you've got to break away from it. So let's talk about, some of the activities that we want to teach our dog to be off leash, that you can stay consistent at with being at home. So, for example, I want to be able to take my dog from my front door or my side door or my gate and tell my dog to get in the car without having to have a leash on it. So what does that look like? How would you do it, Michelle? You ready? Yeah.
I actually did this last week too. It's also funny that all of these are like all my lessons last week. So we're working on that, one of the things with the Dalmatian, and it was super fun. We tied a rope, like a string to the doorknob, like a rope to the doorknob to the inside the car, and we put a clip carabiner, brain fart this morning, on that rope, and then we tied the leash onto that. At first, she was in the car, and she pulled the dog in, yes. And she just went along that carabiner to the car, and so we'd work over and over, back and forth. She knows door, and she knows car. Mm-hmm. And that's just natural. Like, go to the car. Most dogs know, like, woohoo, this is a fun place. But the neighbors also have rabbits in their yard. It's actually a pretty cool little setup they have for the rabbits. But the dog really wants to go play with those. So we tried to have that rope, and we were just doing that over and over and over, doing consistently. And then we unclipped the carabiner, but she still had her leash on. She ran straight to the car. She got in trouble anytime she veered, so we worked on a lot of that. But tying a rope, the dog couldn't escape, but we could practice this. And so that's their homework all week, is she go to the car. And they have that they just clip onto the seat. And so being creative with those ways of going, okay, I want my dog to get this picture, and that there's no other option to go the other way. When you go to the car, you go to the car. Does it take a while? Yeah, but you have to be consistent, and then you get that picture. But that's what we've done, and so far it's been working great.
I think with just like with any other type of training, it really depends on the dogs. Like, I'm just thinking of all the dogs that I've ever worked with on this, and it really depends. Like, does the dog like the car?
Yeah.
I've had a few dogs that
Hated the car. Yep.
And that we just start with just getting the dog in the car with food. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
that whole
Yeah.
process. To dogs that's all they want to do is get in the car, which is even scarier because then they could get in the way of a car, right?
Right.
Two, is the dog a bolter? Because if the dog's a bolter, we got to work on that first, like on the door opening.
Yep.
Some dogs, and especially if the owner can be really consistent with this, it's just a heel, come with me,
Yeah.
Like, so we teach a really strong heel command and then get in the car. With my dogs, it was just just a load up.
Yeah.
Like, it's just, okay, let's load up, and they know where to go.
Yeah.
I mean, I do have a garage, so it's a little bit easier. I don't open the garage until I get in the car and until the dog knows what's going on.
Yep. Yep. It's a great little tip there.
Right.
Work
So
the garage,
so
yeah.
if you don't have a garage, it's a little bit different, obviously. If you live in
Yeah.
an apartment, put your dog on a leash, like,
Yeah. Yeah. There's no other option.
Right.
Yep.
But yeah, I mean, with my dogs, we have a garage, so it was just the garage doesn't get open until, because I don't know what's on the other side of the garage is actually the scarier thing for
Right.
me, because my dog's, Rambo loves to go to the bathroom in the front yard. Like, if I ever need him to go to the bathroom for some
Yeah.
reason, I just put him in the front yard. He always will go.
Funny.
So if that garage opens before he gets in the car, he'll run out there and go to the bathroom. I don't know what's out there.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
and our neighbors have their dogs out all the time, and I
Yeah.
mean, they're really nice dogs, but still,
Yep.
like,
Yep.
it's a Great Dane and Rambo's 8 pounds. You know
Yep.
what I mean? Like,
Yep.
so, but really for me, it was just teaching a load up.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, with June, it was seriously like, I mean, June could be a bolter. Like, that was the scary
Yeah.
thing with her, is
Yep.
that she's so scared of everything that it was like, she easily could have been a bolter.
Yeah.
But, we just taught her a load up into the back of the car. So if I say load up, she would run to the back of the car, even if the garage was open, which I had to open the garage for her because it's too tight of a space to
Yeah.
open the back of the car, where the rest of my dogs sit in the front seat. But, I think it really, that's 100% depends on the dog and your connection with the dog.
Right.
Like, Murphy won't go because he just wants to get in the car, right? Like, he's just like, I want to get in the car.
Yeah.
But I had a burner puppy that hated the car. Like, she would run and hide.
Yeah.
So that was definitely more. I mean, we started out by, she was being fed dinner in the back of the car,
Yeah.
like, just to get her used to it. And them taking her on more car rides and getting her used to that, and it being a positive thing, taking Bones with her, stuff like
Yeah.
that.
Yep.
I had a lab that loved to go places, and he'd be so excited, but then they would open the car and he'd start throwing up. That was really hard. Like, and
Yeah.
I think with him, I think it was more of an excitement thing.
Right,
But then
right.
it became a bad thing about the car. Like,
Yeah.
when they first got him, the car was so exciting because he was going places.
Yeah.
And then he was like, nope,
Every time I
absolutely
get sick.
not. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we actually ended up putting him on CBD oil to calm him down a little bit right
Yeah.
before, like an hour before they
Yeah.
went. And that completely changed everything for
Yeah.
them. So I think with everything, it's different with every dog, but it is being consistent. Because like with him, it took a long time for him to realize, oh, I'm not going to throw up.
Yeah.
Like a long
Yep.
time. Like it was months before he was like, oh, now I can be excited about getting in the car. And he's still a little bit weird about getting in my car. And they've got 2 vehicles, and if they take him in one, he's a little bit weirder about it than the other one. I think because they consistently use one more
Yeah.
often
Yep.
than the other.
Yep.
So I think with that, it's just being consistent in
Yep.
with whatever you decide to do,
Right. Right.
whatever that is.
Yeah. Shannon, do you have yours? I'll go to the car without a leash.
They will, yeah,
Yeah.
they definitely will. Well, every time that we go outside without a leash, we go to the car, you know. But and
Yeah.
then also, I feel like it's important to have a little barrier control, like when the door just is wide open, that the dogs aren't just like, I'm free,
Right.
and they just go wherever. No, if I tell you the car, you are then free
Yeah.
to go to the car.
Right.
You're not free to do whatever you want.
Yeah.
And same with when they're in the car and opening the door for them to get out. They're not just free
Yeah.
to get out of the car
Yep.
until they're invited to go back inside,
Yep.
you know,
Yep.
so that like if the maintenance person comes and opens the gate of the yard,
Right.
then they're just like not like "Wee!"
Yeah.
all over the yard.
Yep.
So I think that's part of it. But I would say my consistency is whenever we go out, you know, without the leash, we always go
Yeah.
get in the car. And I don't just open the door and see what happens. I
Yeah.
say, get in the car and open the
Yeah.
door, and then
Yeah.
they go.
Yeah.
You know, so if your dog enjoys something and you can keep it fun, it just makes it that more easy to
Yeah.
be consistent for
Yep.
you. So if you can try to find ways to be fun to help you stay consistent,
Yeah.
I think that's part of it.
Yeah, yeah. So, I'm not really great about being consistent with telling my dogs to get in the car, because every time I tell them let's go, they're going to the car, and they've gone to the back of many different cars because it's whatever was in the view as they headed out, and I've even had mine run down the road with somebody running. Because that became much more fun. So consistency is definitely important, and there will be errors. And if you as an owner are lack confidence in your dogs, then I think, Melissa, with your exercise, it definitely builds the confidence of the owner to, the dog may not need it, but the owner needing the confidence to stay consistent with their behavior and know that if they change behaviors, that the dog may change behaviors. I think that's a great idea. Keeping the garage door down and practicing that load up, and then even gradually pop the garage open just a little bit where they can't get out, but there's an added something that's happening. I think is another great activity. Keeping the leash on, creating barriers and boundaries. You don't just because the door's open that you run to the car, but adding in those little distractions and those things to help owners stay consistent, but also the dogs to stay honest with what you're asking them to do, I think are great things. And I think that right there is the very beginnings of getting this off-leash connection before comes into play with it. And so let's just really quick talk about with the Doodle, who they've done a great job at consistently keeping him on leash, her on leash. Where do you transition off of that piece, Michelle?
Sorry, with the poodle, the one that's will take off if she's out.
Yep.
I mean, I would definitely do some long line work out and about, doing some. Oh my gosh, why can't I not think right now? Some wandering, and recalls out, doing stuff like that, working them out, working their brain out while you're out, where they feel like they have more space.
Yeah.
And I would definitely do a formal recall, like the word to it, but I would definitely change it to a here instead of a come.
Yeah.
She's really connected otherwise, though, right?
Yeah, overall she is. It's just that here's the scenario. She belongs to a 10-year-old boy, and he's done a fabulous job at training her. And he's very careful about keeping her on leash, and he doesn't want to lose her. And
Nice.
and he's worked hard to get the dog, and he's done a really great job. He actually holds us a little bit more accountable to, okay, this is what we're working on this week, and this is what we need. And so, but twice it's happened that he has fallen out walking her, and she's gotten away from him.
Interesting.
And she just takes off running.
Do you think it scares her? Maybe.
It could.
I wonder if him
potentially.
falling like it just because she's little, right? We're talking about the little doodle.
No, she's big.
Oh,
She's a medium-sized doodle.
oh, okay. But she's not like huge. She's. Have I met her? I think I've met her.
Yeah,
when she was little.
She's like labbish
Oh, okay.
size.
Okay, maybe I have met her. Then.
Yeah.
No, I think I have.
You've met her, but I don't think you've seen her in a long time. 'Cause
Yeah.
I haven't
Okay.
met her
Okay.
for a
Then
while.
That makes sense. So I'm wondering if that's part of it. Is that it scares her that he falls? I don't know. I'm just wondering. Does she bolt at all?
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
Like. Okay, that's what I was gonna say, because I think that's a lot of it. I think dogs that are bolters, like I don't even really think it's necessarily the running. It really is just that they're like, oh my gosh, the door is open, I have to go. Like it's just as like, So I think that like training the doors, like Shannon was talking about, like, oh, there's got to be barriers and stuff is really important as well. But
One thing I did, and I didn't have too long with her, but I had her on leash because I remember that I heard the story. So like, okay, so I'd bring her out there and I'd take off the leash, and she would like. It was almost like her brain was like, "Whoa, I'm off leash and I'm going." So I put a long line on her, just on her flat collar, and then the slip lead, and I walked her out. Slip lead, took off the slip lead, and then she bolted, and I was like, "No, come," and she, oh. But, like, there is that moment, like, it's almost like her brain turns off. It's like, oh, it's gone, and she doesn't know what she's doing. But I think having 2 leashes, one long, like, he can have a 15-foot leash, practicing taking that one off, and maybe as soon as her leash comes off, she has to roll over or down to get that conditioned, because it really is her mind just, once that's off.
So the next step from there would be long line work. I mean, it just, with every case, it's leash, 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 then long line to give them that freedom.
we're not talking retractable leashes, people.
No, we're
Long
talking
lines.
about long, flat, 15 feet, hold to the handle leashes. And then let's talk about the golden that does not come inside. She's young enough, and we've started just training with her. I mean, she's only 6 lessons into her overall training, and it is literally
How old is she? Ish.
5 months ish.
Okay. It's weird. I've never met a golden retriever that was disconnected like that.
Yeah. She
I guess we do have the one lab that's like that,
hardcore not
though. Interesting.
connected.
Weird.
And I've worked with them, and then she was with Melissa for literally like 24 hours, maybe 48 hours. But she will not connect into you at all in the yard.
Is she connected in the house?
No.
Hard. That's rough.
Yeah. And we have been 6 weeks with the leash on and back tied and
Hand feeding and
hand
all the
feeding, crate training. The instant she has any freedoms, whether she's dragging the leash or not,
stuff. How do the people feel about
on
it?
her own.
I'm just wondering because I know there's some people that like the disconnected doesn't bother them. Like
Yeah,
that's,
no, it
but
is very frustrating.
yeah, it would be for me too.
If
if you guys haven't noticed it, I'm really needy with my dogs.
yeah, well, they've come from. I mean, their last 2 Goldens were, they've had behavioral problems, but not disconnected from them. She will find something, and the game is on, and they are older people, no kids in the households. It's not like they're creating or created the problem. They don't chase her because they can't. It's not like this, this dog has come hardwired to no connection at all.
Is there anything she does like? I mean, does she like playing? Does she like treats? Does she like?
Yeah, but she turns it into her game.
Got it.
Yeah,
Okay.
like if I would play with the littlest puppy, because you go outside and he's like, wee, somebody's here. She'd come just to get the puppy away from me. Yeah. She's like, no, this is, you like something? No, you don't. But it was hard. Like, you had to reel her in. She would scramble to get. You had food? She didn't care. Yeah. She'd maybe take it and then run away and then eat it.
And if you go, even put your hand out.
Oh, yeah. She doesn't want to come out of her crate if you're like, it was hard. Like,
It is
even
really
just
hard.
having her for 24 hours, I was just like, ouch.
Yeah.
Like, she doesn't want anything. And so I had her back tied to me inside probably about 45 minutes until she would have any slack in the line and acknowledge my existence at all. Yeah.
So I picked her up yesterday and let him hang out in the yard. And I have a setup somewhat similar to you where everybody came running into the dog run because it was dinner time And then she realized, because I just opened the door and stood, and all of my dogs, everybody ran in, so she just kind of followed the crowd, not really realizing what was happening. And I closed the door on my dog kennel, and then I proceeded to put the dogs in their crate, and then I sent my 2 out of the dog run, and I did not call her. I did not ask for anything other than you go from here into your crate. That's all I'm asking you to do. I'm not asking you to come to me. And so I ended up, chasing her into the room with the crates, then closing that door and putting the pressure on so tight that she chose to go into the crate. So this morning, I did the same thing the 2 other times that they were out. No leash on, no collar on, like nothing on her. I did the same thing. She gets caught up in the moment, so everybody comes running into the dog run. So this morning she hesitated. I stepped out to start pressuring her, and she went and ran right into her crate. But still never connected to me. But I at least got some come in and do something for the first time ever without having to play that game with her. So we'll see where she goes with it. And my, recommendation for the owners is probably putting either some kind of a run line that she's hooked out when she goes outside and she can still run, but she's connected so that she doesn't have any other option but to come. But she definitely would be a candidate for e-collar training, because I think eventually they're going to have to.
That was what I was going to say.
Yeah.
Sounds like it's one of those cases. It's just going to have to happen.
Yeah. Yep. And because she just really, from a puppy, I started with these guys. She was young, and she wants to work, but not really for you. There's just not that connection into you, because the instant she can disconnect from you, she's happy to, and you can't get it.
Does she
back.
connect with the other dogs? I'm just wondering. That's going to help,
rude
but
play.
Is it?
It's trampling, pummeling type play, and she's learned here that my shepherd doesn't tolerate that. So she got put in her place yesterday pretty quickly, and Chianti is on her a lot, and so it shuts her down here. But I don't think you had a dog that would do that to her, because you had all puppies.
Dogs ran away from her. She no dog wanted to be. I had her on a 15-foot long line. Well, actually, it's like 10 foot. So she only had this little perimeter. Because I didn't want to play chase. I was like, I'm hooking you right here. You have this perimeter, to do your thing. But every dog actively avoided. But it was very fascinating when my husband came home. She ran to him. And I figured out it was a release from me. Offense taken. But it's very much a how can it benefit me kind of thing for her.
And her people are so great. They just...
That's really hard.
Yeah.
It's.
So staying consistent. It's nice to have her so that I can create some consistent things with her. And hopefully it transfers back to home with it. And so with Come, the very first thing is staying consistent with your connection, staying consistent with how you're going to do things, the path that you want to take, and work it through the distractions of it all, and don't deviate from, oh, look, the rabbits are out today, so we have to do something different. We don't do anything different, whether the rabbits are there or not. We go to the car. We come out of the door, we go to the car when I'm told to go to the car. You go to your place to get into the car. And that's where it all starts in the beginning, putting a long line on after you've done keeping the leash on and the dog is connected into you, hand feeding, staying active with your dog. And if they can't be with you, then they should be in their crate. And if you have a yard, having them outside is is great. I find that people that live in condos or apartments they're kind of forced to connect with their dog because they have to take them out on leash and go to the bathroom. But that's a great time to start transitioning to long line stuff, to give the dog some more freedoms and able to test to see where they're at as well. So that's the beginnings of Come, and that's where Come should start, is with that consistency of staying with you, keeping the leash on, and creating the picture for your dog, because Come really isn't Come.